I'm pleased to welcome you to the panel discussion, ABN Amro's New10 and Mambu, how to make a digital spin-off a success story at Stockholm FinTech Week. I'm a co-founder of Stockholm FinTech Week, Anna. A digital banking spin-off can operate like a FinTech. It's seen as an investment and innovation arm created to address specific market needs and impacted by the traditional organizational processes. If allowed the freedom, it could leap ahead technologically by prioritizing APIs, cloud and mobile-first thinking, and being able to demonstrate the results in a short period of time. This business case, in the early stage of its adoptions in Sweden, however, it's gaining in momentum. With that, I would like to welcome my panelists to introduce themselves. Let's start with Elko.
Hello everybody, Elko Boonstra. I'm the MD Managing Director for EMEA with Mambu. And Mambu is one of the companies that is a provider of SaaS solutions at core banking with a worldwide, let's say, footprint today.
Kirill?
My name is Kirill Kalyasky, and I am responsible for the technology within New10. New10 is a 100% subsidiary of ABN Amro Bank, and what essentially New10 does for living, we're helping entrepreneurs to achieve their dreams in providing them lending in a fully digital way.
Ayla?
Thanks. So I'm Ayla Todovic, and I work at Deloitte Sweden, where I lead the Innovation and Ventures team, which is part of our strategy offering that focuses on growth. So what this means in practice is that we create and scale new businesses together with some of the leading corporates in the Nordics. And I lead engagement then combining business, tech, data with a creative and human-centered approach, all in effort really to create new businesses.
Speaking from the perspective of your respective organizations, how would you define the spin-off, the digital spin-off, and how to get it started? I'll come back to you, or...
Kirill, go ahead. I think you're the subject matter expert, I would say.
And as well, I prefer to raise the hand, you know.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting question, what is a spin-off? So maybe we can take a look on the history of New10, and it will help us to understand what we're speaking about. About 2017, I think it was, when ABN Amro, being the huge Dutch bank, started realizing that maybe bank wants to step up again when it's coming to work with small entrepreneurs, when it's coming to digital serving, but still you want to be careful when you're running the big changes. It might be very difficult to make a huge change in a bank in one go. And there are different strategies how you want to proceed, but strategy that was chosen before, it's to put a small startup next to the bank and help to combine the best of two worlds. Entrepreneurship in mind, agility, this really startup engineering culture with a huge knowledge that you have in a bank with decades of experience and scoring models. And this is for me what means spin-off, when you're really combining the best of the world.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I would agree. I think definitely from a banking perspective, the spin-off is exactly that. And I think if I look at it from our perspective, so from Mambu's perspective, the spin-off is also a bank where technology plays a big role, because you want agility and speed to market. So meaning if you can use new technology that creates, let's say, a new culture within that spin-off to create rapid product development, to also be, let's say, reactive to the market and actually maybe shape the market somewhat in product life. That is what you'd like to have. So from our side, what really the spin-off also means is we call it a composable architecture, meaning that you look at a core banking system, but then take anything from out there, whether that be KYC, whether that be the front end. Either you build it yourself or you take a best of breed or best in time type of vendor and put them in. And as you grow, you might change that out over time, depending on what your need is. So really the agility that Kirill also mentioned, really bring that into the culture of the people, that you can change fast, test or do the A/B testing quickly, without having the legacy of, let's say, old tech to hinder you in that, but actually making use of some of that old tech from a product knowledge and from I would say a lot of items actually, to speed up the process as well. Because let's not forget, the banks have been there for years and years and years. That experience you cannot just put in a box and forget about, because that is what helps you to really create a successful spin-off.
I really like how you use word composable, because it's something calling really from engineering architecture, and it's something that, like, for heart of every technical startupper is very, very warm feeling. I think to build on top of what you were saying about choosing your partners, it's very important when you're a startup or spin-off to concentrate on your play to win. What is there on the market where I'm actually the best one? And how I can leverage other partners. It could be technology partners like GitLab or Sneak, or AWS or Microsoft, or, for example, business partners like Mambu or Salesforce, to really offload to other people, to other vendors, what they're best in doing, and concentrating in what you're the best. Otherwise, when you try to play on every field, you might feel a challenge when you're relatively small spin-off.
Yeah, I can just add to that. We get that question from clients a lot, like, how do we get started with this? And I would say that the first thing would be to see the spin-off as an investment in innovation and to be clear around the objectives. So just like you were saying, for example, it could be simply to learn about new customer behaviors that are then brought back to the core, but it could also really be a major growth pursuit of accessing a new market or customer segment. And those are two very fundamentally different things, and to be clear around those objectives.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not just an incubator for technology. It's also one that has to have a clear business case. Will it succeed? And there I agree. That needs to be incubated initially before you start. And we've seen also, let's say, technology startups out of a bigger bank or a financial corporation just spun off because, hey, we need to spin off something. And if there's not a clear focus, not a business focus, that's not going to succeed. And I think it is very important, exactly as you mentioned, that there initially needs to be a spark of creativity, entrepreneurship, and a clear business focus. That'll make it succeed 10 times better.
I fully agree. I think it's even not only business maybe focus, but what in this business, like, if you want to serve SME clients, it's a wonderful idea, but it maybe can be even too big, right? So what is the first product that you build? What is the next product? What is the next 3 products? If you will try to change SME holding by spin off 5 separate products, it might be very, very, very challenging.
True.
If we are thinking of of the title of the panel and tie it to the ABN AMRO's New10 and Mambu case, if you could highlight what were successful factors and potentially what were the learnings that you could share?
Let me start, and maybe Elko then can help me on that one.
Sure.
Looking back on the history, I remember that we chose Mambu to be our partners in crime from the day one, basically. It was the first partners we chose, and we never regret it, and maybe we'll regret in future, but I highly doubt so. And there are key factors which we consider back then in making a choice. First of all, it should be SaaS. So something which is a consumable API with a clear identification, with something that's just plug and play. Second aspect, of course, I think it's crucial for any young technology-driven organization, it's how your partners are willing to change together with you. Either you're working with Mambu or with with Salesforce, with Amazon, this partner should be able to listen to you very carefully, have a shared roadmap, and be able to mature together. Because, for example, problem that New10 right now is facing is not exactly the same problem that we're facing 5 years right now. And 5 years from now, we was sitting together, sometimes in one table, really doing whiteboarding session, how we and Mambu will tackle certain problem. We're still doing it together, but on much broader perspective with the frameworks and, sometimes 10, 15 people involved in the same room, but ability to learn together and work as a partners, is crucial.
I agree. I think it's being open to change. I think within Mambu, even the name, it is based out of the old name in Malaysian of bamboo. So it means it can grow fast, but it's also flexible. I think the flexibility means that with customers, you need to be able to adapt, especially with spin-offs, because they grow fast as well. At least they can. And if you're stuck in a situation that you keep on thinking the same way and are not adapting to change, also the requests of customers, that will not create success. And I think what we have done with New10 is, yes, even though we're growing, and of course it's never always without sometimes a good discussion, but we listen to each other, we make time to have a good open discussion and also look forward. So not just plan for today, but also look, okay, how can we set up, let's say, not just delivery, but also the bigger picture in technology. How can we create something that will work for tomorrow? And if I look at it from a Mambu perspective, it's not just helping New10, it actually helps us help other customers as well. A lot of that development went into our product as well.
I remember it was a historical moment when Mambu and New10 were sitting on one basically square in opposite buildings, and one day we kind of gathered a delegation and we came to the Ben Golden, who is the city of Mambu, and we interrogate him on how, gentlemen, ladies, you're doing incident management. And it's nothing to do about FinTech partnership. It's just two very young technology companies are sharing knowledge with each other, and this is helping everyone's business.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Ayla, given your experience with Deloitte's Innovation Venture team, could you please share what's, from your perspective, determines success or failure when you start a new venture?
Yeah, that's a big question. Though maybe with the risk of stating the obvious, but scaling is, of course, one of the main challenges. And we often talk about getting the two stages right of creating a new venture. We call it explore and exploit. And one of the most common pitfalls is not to be aware of that you're actually transitioning between these two stages. So to give you an example, explore is around finding a problem worth solving and exploring all the exciting opportunities and paths that you can take with the new venture. And you get to the rewarding point of having created a value proposition that is unique, and you see indication of customer interest and see all the possibilities of how the venture can take off. And this stage in itself takes a lot of grit and endurance, and you think you finally reached the tipping point, but that's really when the big challenge starts and you enter the stage of exploit, so scaling, and developing your idea into a viable business. So I guess going back to your question, what determines success or failure in starting a new venture, it's similar to any type of business, I would say, where one major component is, of course, having the right people on board. And something that is, often underestimated, I think, is that you often need different kind of people in these two stages as well. So during Explore, it's, a lot around the entrepreneurial spirit and willingness to test, learn, and iterate. Whereas Exploit is about keeping those good stuff, but also adding layers of efficiencies, optimization, and often another type of leadership as well. So I guess that's some of the common things that we see with the clients we work with.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, we even see it in our company. I think, Kirill, you'll probably see it as well on your side, but you'll probably experience it on our side even. As we grow, you need that level of efficiency and with leadership, but also process-wise. So you need to build the fundament right to be able to scale. And that means it requires people, so it also requires investment in that sense. But that is part of the entrepreneurial spirit as well. So if people see that up front and you plan for it, then you can do it. And it also means, exactly as you mentioned, everybody has a peak within a company in the sense of competences. And it's not that people are not necessary anymore, but it's just that you need to look at, okay, how can we still work with those people in a different function and have different leadership at the same time to, scale faster and also still be in control. Because otherwise you get out of control, and you lose your company quite quickly.
I recognize it a lot, Al. It's the fact that people who was doing amazing leadership of the small team, it's not necessarily people who will do the same quality of leadership for a couple hundreds or couple thousands.
Yeah.
The questions of how you can scale and basically steer the team for the succeeding of the scaling. But something that we should not underestimate is how important while you're scaling and reaching new markets and bringing new brilliant people and new capabilities, how keep this initial entrepreneur startupish culture to ensure that people actually here to play to win and not to achieve, their small goals of their small departments. And this is sometimes I see with my colleagues and friends who are going in their companies, their own, or working through this, scalability part of the development. People are losing touch while we're all here.
Yeah, I agree. I think the moment you lose touch with your culture and the reason why you're even starting, that's when you become let's say, economies of scale from a political sense, and that's usually not the right one for business reasons.
Since you already touched a bit on the challenges, should we dive into what could be the challenges to starting a spin-off inside the organization?
Okay, let me maybe start. If you want other people to start, please start.
Please share your.
I see, at least based on my experience and experience of New10, there are three big challenges. How to concentrate on what's important and how to create a focus while still be fully compliant, because like FinTech world, it's still financial world, so it's highly regulated, highly compliant for the good reasons, because, it's people's money, it's economy structure and so on. So you have to balance very quickly speed of delivery and actually maturity of delivery. Second, of course, something that we learned being in New10, how on a point on horizon, you already know where you want to be and what you're going to do further. Are you going to work closer with a big organization that you spin off? It means, will you, for example, do reporting to the bank when you was spin from, or how you're going to work with maybe regulatory organization and steer your systems in such a way that in future it will be possible, because it's not possible to build bank next to the bank. And of course, it's being extremely proactive, something that we're doing right now with Mambu. Okay, for example, in 2 years from now, when you're then going to have 10 times more clients and 10 times more portfolio, will regulatory, for example, requirements fulfilled? How we can ensure SLA? So really being proactive in your scaling. I think this is the three top most important thing, at least from my expertise. And I really hoping, colleague, that you can.
I fully agree. I think one add to it, what we've seen is, let's say, in failing and scaling, those are the tools that I really see from that side, is also culture. And with culture, what I mean is, if the control is still initially with the bigger mother company and actually it's being steered as a big company, the chance of success is less. So if there's an autonomy within the spin-off that creates an agile culture, but also creates its own culture, that usually succeeds. That is something that will work a lot longer. And the question is, of course, how is it adapted again once, for instance, the example works so well and it needs to blend back into the bigger organization? That is another change project that is quite a big one, because we all know the takeovers in IT land. If somebody says, hey, a big IT giant takes over a small enterprise, what you hear in the back room is usually, well, that culture is going to be gone within, let's say, 6 to 12 months, and hopefully the company survives. That's the same for spin-offs. You need a strong culture, I think, and there's also an embracement when you go back into the bigger company, from that company, that they see, hey, this is successful because of how it's run, and not just the business case itself.
Yeah, I think recognition is important. And when it's blending back to the big organization, it's of course really dependent on top management and leadership of that big organization to see, okay, if this culture, this spin-off is something that we want to have, maybe not now, but on the point of horizon. And if it's this vision in place, then it has a high chances to succeed.
Yeah, fully agree.
Perfect. Then we come to a very important point of a discussion, since we have a very interesting audience listening to us, and potentially there will be the interest to take this business case to the next level in the Nordics. What would be your recommendations to the financial institution when they think about starting a digital spin-off?
Should I start?
Please.
Yeah, I think a lot of great things have already been mentioned, but to me, I guess it is about getting top management commitment, where mindset and incentive are almost everything. And I genuinely believe that the only organization that can get this right are the ones whose leaders want it. So setting the right metrics for the right stage in this process is critical to keep the senior executives from getting frustrated. And I would sometimes call it that, getting the boring things right. And for corporates, there is this challenge of following the startup mantra of failing fast. And I think what we see with more of our mature organizations is that they talk about adapting fast. And organizations that do focus on creating that system that we've mentioned for creating new business are more likely to grow profitably and overcome those challenges, either if it's inside or outside the organization.
Yeah. I would like to compare it to the case with children. You have to let them go and have them make their own decisions. So it creates, or it needs, let's say, seniority on the other side, exactly as you mentioned, leadership to have the spin-off do their own thing, make their own mistakes, but also learn quickly. So if there is an agile approach there and there's a good business case and there's trust from management, it has a big chance to succeed, but it needs those aspects. If it doesn't have those aspects, I would recommend don't start, because you're set up for failure.
Yeah, I fully agree. There is this wonderful book called Dare to Care. It's about essentially safe-based leadership, and this is something that could be taken as an organizational point. You give a lot of trust to this small spin-off to run and fail by themselves, but as a big organization with a lot of experience, you protecting them from making the very huge mistakes. But people should make their own mistakes to learn. That's clear.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. To wrap up the panel, I would like to thank you everyone for joining, and specifically all my panelists for sharing the knowledge. And of course, please feel free to reach out to them and ask questions. And we are about to have a very interesting business cases that I foresee in the Nordics.